Welcome back to Hartford, Connecticut, as we get ready for our elite women's race, our penultimate race of the day, with some snowy conditions earlier, but now the sun's starting to come out and things starting to heat up just a little bit here in Riverside Park. We are just less than a mile away from downtown Hartford. It really is a beautiful course here for our 2017 USA Cycling Cyclocross National Championships. Let's jump right into our elite women, being joined by Tim Johnson and Georgia Gould in the booth as we take a look at the front row. Tim, a lot of talent in this field.
No, there's really nothing that's going to beat the excitement of that under-23 men's race that just finished, except for this race. There is still so much action to be had. You've got your 12-time national champion, Katie Compton, right there, center of your picture. She's lining up in the front row. She has Caitlin Antoneau to her left in the green, and Elle Anderson, number 4, just to her right. Also, these riders are all trying to get onto the podium. They're trying to get into that jersey, and there's quite a bit of action still to come.
Well, Katie Compton looking to make it 13 national championships for her. Georgia, this is a rider that you've done battle with in your career, a rider that you know well. Can anyone beat Katie Compton today?
Well, anyone can be beat, Brad, but Katie's going to be tough to beat. She's always a very consistent racer. She's very strong. She's very technically skilled. And this year, as opposed to years past, she hasn't been to Europe as much. So she's not coming off that big Christmas travel week and race week. She's been at home. She's been training. So really focused on this race, and they're off.
All right, we're underway in racing. There is Katie Compton right in the center, trying to get the whole shot in the white jersey, although it looks like she's a little bit behind what is going to be Caitlin Antoneau of the Cannondale Cyclocross World Squad in the green jersey. So Antoneau will get the whole shot. Tim, the young rider out of Racine, Wisconsin, takes the early lead.
Solid start by Katie, as well as Elle Anderson right there. You see the rider in the light blue, Rebecca Faringer, coming in at about 5th position. Looks like Katie Compton has gotten to the front already. I think that might have been Amanda Miller just next to her. We're going to see them coming out of the pit very shortly as they approach that very tough left-hand turn, which posed quite a few problems for the under-23 men earlier. But safe start so far for these riders. Looks like Compton is in the lead. Anderson and Antoneau just behind.
Well, this is pretty bad news for all the other riders, as you see Rebecca Faringer having a little bit of trouble there. Looked like she lost control coming into the pit there, Georgia.
Yeah, all these riders really vying for that lead. Again, you want that clean course in front of you. There's so many ruts here. There's so many, little things that could just take you out. And this is the beginning of the race. This is where it's important to make that initial selection.
On to the bonk breaker run up for the first time, and Katie Compton's already got a little bit of a gap here. Now she is going to go high. We'll watch the riders trying to go low. That's Elle Anderson taking the low line. Now Anderson looks like she's in the lead here, but remember, guys, the high line has typically been faster, as we saw in the junior and U23 races.
That's probably the fastest low line we've seen yet today.
Yeah.
Elle Anderson now has a long run up to do now. It's diagonal across the top. Anyone who knows a little bit of algebra knows that the hypotenuse is the longer way to get to the same spot, but in this case, she was able to go fast at the beginning.
Yeah, so Elle Anderson bucks the trend, and she's able to pick up a pretty good gap coming to the top of this one.
Yeah, we saw Katie get back on her bike trying to ride across the top of that bonk breaker climb, as we saw the U23 men were able to do, but then having some trouble and having to get back off her bike, which really cost her a few seconds and enabled Elle Anderson to take the lead.
Well, this is where it pays off to really stick to your guns, know your strategy, know your strength. When they zig, you got to zag, and that's exactly what Elle Anderson did here.
Yeah, as much as you have hopes, you have to adapt to whatever happens out there. You saw the pile up right at the top behind Katie Compton. She jumped back on her bike, started riding again, while up front Elle Anderson was skateboarding a little bit. It's nice to see what's playing out right now. We've got Elle Anderson, who's been spending the majority of her year in Belgium once again. She's picked up quite a bit of that technical adeptness that you need when you deal with conditions like this. You have to be able to be light on your feet and find those correct lines amongst all of these different ruts.
And I think Compton has the confidence. She knows that she's fit. She knows that she has the skills. So she's not going to panic, even though Elle Anderson does have a little bit of a gap here.
Well, we saw Compton overcome a little bit of a deficit last year in our 2016 edition. She finds herself in a similar position here in 2017, although we're only 3 minutes into this race. There's a lot that's going to happen between now and the end of this one. So that is Elle Anderson in the black jersey on the front. Katie Compton in the white jersey just behind her. Compton wearing the Pan Am Championship colors as she tries to make up the gap to Elle Anderson. But look at behind Katie Compton. What happened to the rest of the field?
Well, it looks like Amanda Miller's kind of trying to close it down there. I think Miller is really someone to watch today.
Yeah.
You know, this is the first year that she's been able to focus solely on cyclocross. So she's done some road racing in preparation, but not nearly as much as she's had to do in years past.
Tim, your pick. Who's got the best shot at upsetting Katie Compton?
Well, it looks like, talking about Amanda Miller, she just had a problem there. She went from third position back down to about seventh right through the pit lane. Katie Antoneau is leading that group. It looks like Crystal Anthony just behind her, and Sunny Gilbert as well, front row start. So, it's tough to say that how things are going to pan out at the end of the race. We saw the under-23 men's race change positions every single lap all the way up until the final 30 seconds around trying to find some purchase.
And it's still so early in this race. Taking out other riders, again, really some panic there to try to get a clean look at what's coming up.
Here comes Elle Anderson. Now, riders had trouble here, too, as well. They went too wide, and you see that tape hanging down. That is what has been catching up a lot of riders, especially in that U23 men's race that we just saw wrap up. So Compton and Anderson are by. You should be seeing Miller coming through here in just a bit, as it looks like she has now been passed, and that is going to be Crystal Anthony, who has been moved up. Amanda Miller is falling way, way back here. That's her in the orange jersey of the Boulder Cycle Sport Yoga Glow team.
Yeah, Courtney McFadden there, number 6 coming through. Here's Sunny Gilbert trying to make her way.
Crashes. That's going to be Rebecca Faringer getting caught up with what looks like Arlie Kemmerer. And, Kemmerer and Faringer have a little dust up there, and they go into the woods.
Yeah, I had a chance to do a couple laps last night on the pre-ride, and rider in light blue here in orange we're going to see coming from the rear. Rebecca Faringer, she was so intimidated by what the course had to offer with the snow and ice, but it wasn't even her doing here. Arlie Kemmerer falling into it.
So really, everybody's having trouble out there. It's still so early in the race. It's so important to not panic and to just take your time, focus, and ride this course the best that you can.
Well, coming off of the Travelers Insurance barriers, we saw Elle Anderson get a little bit more time over Katie Compton here, and now Anderson really has her pick of line on the front. Katie Compton's got enough gap in front of her that she'll be able to pick wherever she wants to go as well. That is Crystal Anthony, your third-place rider on course. And now we pick up the front of the race with Compton.
You know, Crystal Anthony, one of the riders that was considered a long shot for the podium going into this weekend with normal conditions. You know, she's a rider that will contend at any number of UCI races around the country, but she's not typically a pick for getting into the first 3 riders on the podium at the national championships. These conditions, however, I think really fit into her skill set. She spends a lot of time on her mountain bike. She's really built up her ability to deal with technical situations like they're dealing with today. So I think this is playing out to be a great race for Crystal Anthony.
Our apologies again. We're on a little bit of a dark spot on the course, doing our best to get those cameras up to you as soon as possible. But, George, when they come out of that, they're going to be back on the pavement here very shortly. I'm thinking right around a little over 7-minute lap times here. That's what we saw right around with the U23 men. So this course, even though it's snowy out here, it's not all that slow. They're actually cruising pretty well out there.
They're able to go pretty fast, but again, we're seeing from almost every rider little mistakes here and there. So really important to stay focused and to not let those little mistakes affect your race. But I think you've definitely seen a separation with the better bike handlers really making themselves known even just this early in the race.
All right, so that at the left-hand side of your picture, we could just barely see Elle Anderson and Katie Compton. Anderson takes the inside line here, and she gets in a little trouble.
The line that Katie Compton just took there was down and wide, and that actually gave her a clear shot at the small uphill. Great line in the dry. It's turning out to be great right now. I was able to speak with a couple of the riders pre-riding just a few minutes ago. It is getting very slick and turning into mud in certain sections. It's sticking to the bike, it's sticking to the shoes, and it's really treacherous because it will freeze in place. So you're going to see riders possibly getting into the pits throughout the day.
So this is that last little feature. Then they're going to go up and over this Volkswagen off-camber section. That'll bring them back down onto the pavement where they'll complete the first lap. I said it was going to be something like 7:30. Now it's looking more like 8:15, maybe even 8:30, as now we've got a new leader. Katie Compton picks up the lead on the Volkswagen run-up and off-camber section. And all of a sudden, a familiar place for Katie Compton. Number 1 is back at the front.
And that's just where Katie wants to be so that she can set the tempo. She doesn't have anyone to worry about in front of her. She has a clear sight line of all the lines she wants to take.
Problem for Crystal Anthony trying to adjust her chain on that Volkswagen section. Anthony had some sort of issue with the drivetrain. Meanwhile, our first two coming through, completing their first lap. Katie Compton trying to get some blood flow to the fingers there, Tim.
Yeah, glove choice is going to be key throughout the day. Some of the other categories you saw riders just hands turning into ice blocks, really unable to do much with their braking or shifting. Katie Compton, if she's doing this right now, it could be preempting that freeze. Maybe she's got a little bit of freeze happening already, but as the race goes on, it's going to be really important not only to keep your bike working, but also to keep your digits and your feet. I mean, sometimes people get really distracted by being so cold out there.
All right, so Katie Compton, Elle Anderson. Katie Antonow was the rider in green that you saw just a little bit ago for the Cannondale Cyclocross World Squad, who took the whole shot but then found herself pushed behind these riders, and now it looks like Katie Compton starting to gap Elle Anderson. Compton is starting to get some time here as she continues to power away. Welcome back to the Katie Compton Show at the 2017 USA Cycling National Championships.
Let's see how this next section goes. Elle Anderson, if she goes low again and has a clean run at it, she might be able to make up some of that distance that Katie Compton has taken over her so far. So looks like she is going low. She's going to be able to ride a longer stretch on her bike before finally getting off and running. I did see that last time they went uphill, the run of Elle Anderson wasn't necessarily the fastest. You know, her running style, it's a little bit shorter steps. Looks like she is trying to get that speed going, but as they reach the top, we'll be able to see exactly how much of a gain or a loss she's able to make.
Yeah, you know, I think Katie Compton had a little bit of trouble at the top of the Bonk-Breaker run-up the first time. This time, much faster through. And so this time, the top line pays off as Katie Compton gets a
Masters racing that a lot of the guys that weren't as strong running definitely choosing that lower line so that they could minimize the time off the bike.
Well, Compton looking comfortable in the snow here as she does a good job staying right on top of that bike. She's an excellent bike handler, obviously has the physical stamina to pick up the national championships as well, but she really knows how to pilot that bike.
And as she grows out this lead second by second, she's going to be able to kind of take more conservative lines and really not have to risk so much. So that's going to be a real advantage.
Elle Anderson is not having a good time with the remounts here, Tim.
Well, in just a short section of the course, things really start to go pear-shaped. She's got a couple corners that didn't work out quite as well as before, but it looks like she took a crash there. Her face is bloodied, I believe.
I think that's mud on the face. Maybe as Katie was going down the descent, we missed, could have been just at the top of that Cannondale downhill that Crystal Anthony is on right now. We'll try and figure out what happened to Elle Anderson, but looks like she might have had a close encounter with the course here in Hartford. So meanwhile, Katie Compton skips the pit this time through. Now this is the second side of this pit. It's a two-sided pit. Once as you're basically leaving the starting stretch on the pavement, then you come back here just before you duck down into the woods. So, Tim, let's talk a little bit about the pit situation today. Every rider with a mechanic in the pit, and they're also going to have a B-bike in there. And you hope that you don't have to use the Shimano pit at a national championship, but sometimes it's your best friend.
Well, you know, you have to rely on it to save you from a real disaster out there, but you also have to believe in it as kind of a way to have an advantage over another rider. You've got riders from a team, of one, like Katie Compton. She has her husband, Mark Legg, in there, who's a great mechanic, spent a lot of time at a very high level. But to Katie Compton, she knows no matter what, she's going to get a perfect bike every time she needs one.
Amanda Miller and Caitlin Antonow on your screen right now. Miller in the orange for the Boulder Cycle Sport Yoga Glow squad, and the green jersey of the Cannondale Cyclocross World jersey of Caitlin Antonow. Back with your current leader and defending champion on the front. Boy, I don't know if Katie Compton is ever going to come back, as she just seems to be consistent. We're only 12 and a half minutes in, but we haven't really seen one bobble except maybe that problem on the top of the Bonk-Breaker run-up. We saw her have a little bit of trouble on the dismount the first time, but she got it dialed in after that.
Yeah, it looks like we are dealing with something in Elle Anderson's case here. She looks like she's taken a crash at some point in the course. She did have a small gap there over Katie Compton for the first part of that first lap. So perhaps it was right after in one of the sections we weren't able to follow, but she is holding steady in second position. Katie Compton has a lead just about 12 seconds, I think, over her. And third position is of battle right now with Katie Antoneau and Amanda Miller.
Yeah, so that crash was at the top of the Bonk-Breaker run, up the top of that ridge. It sounds like Anderson went down up there and lost even more time to Katie Compton. So, Georgia, this goes back to what we were talking about before. You got to put that one mistake behind you and just focus on the next 30 minutes of racing ahead.
And Katie's so experienced that she knows that. You know, she knows everyone's making mistakes. And so she has that experience to know to not let those little things affect her race. I think you're also going to see Amanda Miller really charging hard. She's spent a lot of time on her mountain bike this year training for cross, and her skills have really improved.
Well, the riders working their way over the Travelers barriers now, as Katie Compton looking like she's high-stepping it on the way through. I think there's a lot of accumulated snow in between those barriers. The last thing you want to do is drag a toe through some snow or ice, so she's being very careful, especially on the dismounted part, because as we talked about, even though you have the toe spikes and we're starting to see some ruts getting worn in here, it is very, very slippery once you get off the bike.
It's definitely still icy in spots under that snow, so you see riders being pretty ginger with how they're running out there.
And Tim, this goes back to taking risks. You talk about Max Chance, who almost lost the race when he decided to dismount on that Bonk-Breaker run-up to make what was almost the race-winning pass, but he certainly took a big gamble there. He almost lost his footing, but he was able to hold it and move into the lead when he passed Gage Hecht up there.
It's a moment-by-moment decision. He made a move that was very risky, but like you said, it turned out to put him into the lead, so of course it made it worth it all of a sudden. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to go with the victory at the end of the race, but you know, any number of corners, any number of course features could put an end to your entire hope of winning that race.
I'm seeing Katie Compton, when we get the shots of her on the front, she seems to be shaking her hands out a lot. Georgia, is she cold already? Is this a problem for Katie Compton? We see her kind of doing the windmill with the hand, trying to get blood flow. 15 minutes into this race, is she going to be okay?
Well, I mean, I think everyone's cold out there. Anyone that's got gloves on is still feeling the cold. But, you know, I think Katie's got a little bit of time, so she can afford to kind of take her hands off the bars and try to get some blood flow back. I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Well, especially if she does have a clear shot at the course. She's going around these corners, taking her time. She's trying not to make a big mistake, trying not to end up on the ground. If she were to make a small dab like she's putting out her foot right there, it's usually preemptive. She knows that she's probably going to slide out. She'll drop a foot, try and balance correctly, maybe even plan on touching the ground at some point. This is one of the favorite skateboard parks here in Hartford, recently built here just for the Cyclocross Nationals, but you know, every single rider has to fit into that one groove, one little rut. So while she's riding alone, she has this entire course to play with by herself.
Look at her digging the toes in, really kicking that front toe in to make sure that those spikes grab on what could be frozen ground. Remember, this is the first time that we've used this section of the course, and it has been closed all week. No one has been riding on it until they opened it for pre-ride yesterday. So here's Katie Compton onto the pavement for her second lap of the day, working her way through as the defending champion. Tries to pick up another national championship to make it 13.
Just taking a look at the weather that the riders are dealing with right now. So the ambient temperature is 23 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very cold, but as the Weather Channel loves to do, they've made another name for it, and it feels like.
Yes.
So with the wind, with the lack of anything warm out there, it is 13 degrees.
We call that the wind chill. I understand you Colorado folks don't have that.
No, we just have one temperature. It just is what it is.
Well, there's two temperatures here, cold and colder in Hartford.
Elle Anderson coming through in second position. She really has taken a beating. Her face does have blood on it. If not a blood, it's going to be some kind of a mud, but it looks like she might have had a bloody nose. Maybe some of the people who are watching this race on the side of the course, feel free to reach out via Twitter and let us know exactly what you see right on the ground. You guys can't get any closer than that. You're right on the tape watching these riders go by very, very closely, trying to win this national championship. And
it
a
looks
problem
like
like that.
Miller has moved into second.
Yeah,
so,
this is Amanda Miller passing Elle Anderson through the Shimano pits here. That's going to be Caitlin Antoneau in the green jersey just behind her. So second, third, and fourth place on your screen with what is now Amanda Miller has just moved into second position. Elle Anderson slips down to third.
You know, Miller had a few rough crashes in her European campaign this year, and I think she might have been a little bit cautious on that first lap, but, you know, she doesn't want to let Katie get too far ahead, so I think you see her making her move as she settles in, as she finds her rhythm on the course today.
Well, here goes Anderson low again on the Bonk-Breaker section. And there's Compton just up, so she can barely see Compton as she looks up to the top of the bonk breaker run-up. Compton is continuing to grow her gap. We're only 18 minutes into this race, and already Katie Compton with a comfortable lead coming off of the backside of this course.
So these riders will be noting that, seeing where Katie is and then remembering that, so the next time they're coming through there, they can see in these sections where they have a good view of the course ahead of them how far Katie is and if they're gaining or losing time.
All right, so there's Amanda Miller across the top in the orange jersey. Elle Anderson makes her way back up onto that line, and then there's Caitlin Antonow. Never count out Antonow, the petite badger, as she's always got a little fight in her, and she's comfortable in these conditions growing up in Racine, Wisconsin.
One of her first nationals podium at the elite level was in Wisconsin, and conditions just like this, is a little bit more mud on top of the ice, but it was very similar, rutted conditions from earlier races in that week, and she put together a very strong race with minimal mistakes. She's the type of rider who's got very good technical skills. She may not be as strong as Katie Compton, who's riding at the front of this race, who is known as a very powerful rider, but Katie Antonow will let nothing in her way on her way to trying to get onto that podium.
And Katie Antonow has really shown in the past that she can perform on the day. She's had great results at multiple national championships, and she's also had great results at the world championships. So she really deals well with the pressure of a big one-day race.
Well, Katie Compton working her way through the second side of the Shimano pits now. And there's not really much that her pit crew can say to her at this point. I mean, a few words of encouragement, but everything seems to be going pretty well for the defending champion so far.
Another day at the office.
Yeah. You wonder if it ever gets old for someone like Katie Compton with 12 wins already, looking for 13 this year.
I don't think it ever gets old. The national championships, Tim can tell you, there's just something special about that. I don't think it matters how many times you win that. It's still a goal for every racer every year, and it's always special.
Katie Compton with 14 wins this season, which is impressive on its own, but then you add in the 120 career wins for Katie Compton, and if things keep going the way they are, that's going to become 121 here real soon.
Now, Nationals was a very big focus of hers this year. Her decision not to spend the time chasing the World Cup as she has in years past, winning the overall there multiple times, but now she's spending more time in the U.S. racing a series of events that give her a chance to work on her form, work on her skills, race against the people she will be seeing at Nationals, and to try and get those wins, which how much a win means versus just another podium or another shot at trying to go for a win. So getting those wins has set her up nicely for this Nationals.
And I think you see, Katie staying domestically this season, it really speaks to the level of women's cyclocross racing in the U.S. right now, that you can stay in the U.S. and still get world-class racing. You have racers like Katarina Nash, Amanda Miller, all these women that are doing well on the world stage and also racing domestically. So Katie doesn't feel the need to go over there in order to get that world-class competition.
Talking about the growth of American cyclocross racing, let's take a look at our Pro CX standings for the 2017 season presented by Cyclocross Magazine. Katie Compton wrapped that one up easily with 828 points, but look at the talent underneath her. Emma White, Crystal Anthony, Amanda Miller, Rebecca Fahringer, Ellen Noble, Courtney McFadden, and Arlie Kemmerer, Caitlin Antonow rounding out the top 10. There are a lot of talented female riders in the pipeline for American cyclocross. It's going to be an exciting next couple of years here, as especially some of these younger riders start making their way over to Europe. They start to get more comfortable over there. Tim, going to Europe the first time in your first season, it's pretty much the worst experience of your life.
Well, it has turned out to be that way for a lot of riders, but I think that is changing as far as how Americans view their forays into the European racing scene. The races themselves are typically a higher level of competition. You make one mistake, you will pay for it because 5 riders will pass you, as opposed to making a mistake sometimes in the U.S. and you might just keep your position, and it's okay. Over there, the level is a little bit higher. The conditions of the courses are tougher, a lot more challenging terrain, but the riders really have to learn to grow wherever they are, and staying in the U.S. as Katie Compton is doing this year is going to bring her yet another national championship title if she continues with her clean and fast race.
Well, same thing here. Some riders taking the high line, some riders taking the low line on the bonk breaker run-up section here.
It's nice. You can actually see how that move by the Richard Sachs rider is going to pay off. She's gone and really put a lot of time into the riders she had approached the hill at the same time with. So it looks like that bottom move is going to work out for a lot of these riders.
Yeah, that's going to be Rebecca Lewandowski making her move up that bonk breaker run up as Katie Compton hits the flyover up and over easily. We're working our way back down, and now we're going to get a good look at the gap here. They're going to be seeing 3 to go on the counter when they hit the line. And Katie Compton might be out of sight of the next chasers behind here. See her just to the left of your picture going out of sight in that white kit. And now we'll be looking for what we think is going to be the Elle Anderson, Amanda Miller, Caitlin Antonow group.
I think last we saw Amanda Miller there by herself in second place, so she's really put some distance between herself and the other chasers. Amanda is saying, she was going to be disappointed if she didn't make it on the podium today. So she's definitely feeling confident, she's feeling strong, and she's ready to chase down Katie Compton.
And that's a reasonable expectation. She's had a great year. She's spent a lot of time at the front of the races in Europe, which she hadn't been able to do that before. She's had very strong results, but they were usually spaced apart. This year, it seems like it's much more consistent. She's getting on the front, she's getting on the podium, and she's putting together a great ride.
Yeah, she's really built her season around this later part of the season. So she's been working up towards nationals, towards worlds, towards those last few World Cups. So really an eye on the World Championships and National Championships for Amanda Miller.
Okay, Compton adjusting the shoe a little bit before jumping up onto the grass here. And we'll get a better look at the gap as we should be seeing Amanda Miller popping onto the pavement here in just a bit. Katie Compton looks really, really comfortable. I was worried about her being cold earlier, but she looks loose right now, that's for sure. She looks incredibly comfortable on the bike. Certainly doesn't look like she's battling the elements so far today.
Her hands could be completely numb also. Yeah. At this point, she's like just completely given up, even trying to get blood flow. I mean, happened to me before.
All right, here's Amanda Miller coming through with Caitlin Antonow just behind her. Again, that's second and third place on course. I think Caitlin Antonow will catch Amanda Miller today, and that might be the battle of the day. I mean, if you're looking for action, that's the race to watch. The battle for second with Amanda Miller and Caitlin Antonow. It's shaping up to be a great one here.
There are probably some little Katie fans out there who would disagree with you, but I think it's up to these riders to try and go fast without hitting the deck. You can see just how much the effects of a crash have really put pay to some of the earlier races today. Now in the women's race, you can see Elle Anderson there. You've got the dirt on her kit. She obviously hit the ground at some point. This part where we see Katie Compton right now, it is muddy, and this is where the most slippery areas are. They're running right now with those spikes in their shoes, which are helpful, but sometimes that mud actually will continue to stay in your shoe and make clipping in that much more difficult.
Well, and with these temperatures, the mud in those warmer spots then freezes up once you're pedaling again, and so that could really make a difference later on in this race.
Amanda Miller trying to chase her way back up. It does look like Caitlin Antonow starting to gap off the back just a little bit as they hit the bonk breaker run up one more time. And both riders going to take the high line here. Now we'll look to see where they're going to remount. That's been the big question up top. Do you try and remount early and ride across the top, or you just run it all the way and play it safe?
Looks like they're remounting and then having to get back off again. I think that skateboard technique is something that you have to work on and be comfortable with. And the first couple times you do it, it's makes you feel like you might be out of control a little bit. But there's Elle Anderson, the bottom of your screen. She has gone for her original line once again. And we'll see if she's able to close that gap to Antonow in green.
Well, she's got a long way to go as she just starts making her way up the elevation gain. Meanwhile, Antonow riding across the ridge, across the top of this course, and she has a little trouble there. Antonow gets caught up and has to put a foot down. I think she got caught in some mud there.
Yeah, but I think Katie Antonow, she has sort of a patience about her. She doesn't get flustered. I mean, last year in the race in Asheville, Katie and I were riding together at the front, but little Katie Antonow, she was chasing the whole time, and she was making time on us in some places, so she doesn't give up. She doesn't let those little mistakes phase her, and I think that's really going to be an asset today. Yeah,
she's really the last person to give up. She's very determined, and she has done a great job of incorporating her professional cycling career into her life. She finished her collegiate studies early while still racing a full cyclocross schedule around the world. She's also racing on the road. She's going to race next year for the Silence Pro Cycling Team and do a select number of events with them. So she's doing a great job and is now having a great race in that podium position, hopefully with Amanda Miller coming a little bit closer into her sights.
Katie Compton working her way through the woods right now on a section that is claimed Just about a rider every lap in our 3 earlier races today, but Katie Compton glides across it like it's nothing. Then we go back to Crystal Anthony. That is going to be Anthony riding just ahead of Courtney McFadden in the blue jersey with the pink highlights on her shorts.
Courtney also having a great later part of the season, and I spoke with her last night, and she said she's really excited about nationals. She feels more prepared and kind of less burned out than she has in the past. And she lives up in Bellingham, Washington, and does a lot of riding in slippery, wet conditions. So I think she's really going to be happy about the conditions today, and it's going to speak well to her strengths.
Well, guys, with 3 to go, the question is, can anyone catch Katie Compton at this point? And with each passing minute, it looks less and less likely that anyone will be able to find the defending champion at the front of this race. She found herself in 3rd position coming out of the hole shot, but she took off early, and they haven't seen her since, but she's got to hold on for 3 more laps. We're looking at Rebecca Farringer on the screen right now, the rider for the Amy D Foundation squad, working her way through a difficult off-camber section.
Rebecca, a really strong rider. I mean, very good engine. I think in the past, the technical skills have been a bit of a weakness for her. I'm not sure. I haven't been racing this year, so I don't know about how much improvement she's made this year, but I'm sure she would have been definitely up there, maybe a little bit farther up in the field if the conditions have been dry.
And the lead into nationals, the talk was, what's the course going to be like, or what's the weather going to be like? When the course description became public and riders started to see it for themselves, especially when they saw the course laid out the way that it was, if this hadn't have been snowy and icy and muddy like this, it really would have been great for someone with just pure power, great fitness, and you would just try and go as fast as you possibly can. Now with these conditions, it's really changed.
I would say someone like Katie Antonow falls into that category. Obviously a very strong road rider. She keeps the road fitness throughout the year. So if you had a much flatter, faster day, I think Katie Antonow would have been having a better day and would be a little closer to her mentor, Katie Compton, than she is right now.
And just in the rear of that view, we see Katie Compton here, but Katie Antonow is still chasing Amanda Miller. They are sitting about 3 or 4 seconds apart, so they're very much in that fight for second position. But Katie Compton going by one of the lapped riders. As you see Amanda Miller in orange starting to come across the screen right in the middle. She's just ahead of Antonow, who is still chasing. They're going to go around the gazebo here. Some of these turns look pretty innocuous. They're really not that tough to look at, but on a bike, right on the ground, these ruts will just steal away any balance you've got, and you're on the ground before you know it.
Yeah, even this flyover, I mean, Katie Compton made it look so easy where she just rode up and then sort of coasted down, but not quite that easy for everyone else. You see some of the frozen ruts that Tim was just talking about right here. Tim, if your tire comes out of that rut, you're going to find yourself in that blue snow fencing pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we were talking about earlier is that, Keegan, the course designer, is able to put together a race that will challenge your riders in parts of the grounds that really don't seem that tough, and it's where you place the stakes, it's where you place the tape. You force riders to go into a turn awkwardly, maybe a little bit off camber, off balance. Here's Katie Compton going wide around this corner. She's able to ride all the way up and over. The rider she's passing, unable to do the same, and that's that's great. It really helps riders with these strong technical skills float to the top.
And she just looks so comfortable on the bike, doesn't she? In what could be very challenging conditions, Katie Compton has really made the best of the situation today. It is still Amanda Miller and Caitlin Antonow behind her as Compton comes on to this last difficult off-camber section.
And there's that skateboard technique. She stays clipped in on her outside foot. On the inside, she literally kicks along with her foot on the ground just a couple times, keep that momentum going. A lot of times it's actually worse to stop or slow down. If you go a little bit faster, that momentum will carry you over and you won't slip over.
And the camera shot on that off camber is kind of deceiving. You don't see how quickly it falls away on that outside line, and it's just snow, so it's so slippery. So any wrong move off of that skinny single track line could be disastrous.
Katie Compton rolling through, getting 2 laps to go now. And some pretty good air coming off of that little jump onto the grass. This part right here is very slippery, guys. On the pavement there, we did have some ice that was forming underneath the snow, so we have seen a few crashes there earlier today. Obviously, Compton made it through just fine, but that could have could have been a tough section.
And
See if she goes through the pit here. No, gonna stay on the same bike. I don't think she's pitted once this race.
Doesn't look like there's much buildup on the bike, so unless she has some sort of mechanical, I doubt we'll see her head in there. Although she's amassed enough of a gap that it wouldn't be too much of a penalty, I don't think. But really, she's able to finesse those sketchy sections, those slippery sections, and really lay down the power in the safer places. So.
Well, here comes Caitlin Antonow trying to catch Amanda Miller up the road. There goes Miller. And there's Antonow. This is the smallest gap that Caitlin Antonow has had to the rear wheel of Amanda Miller as she tries to pilot her way through those frozen ruts. Tim, Caitlin Antonow is not a big girl. She doesn't have a whole lot of body weight to work with in terms of trying to navigate this bike and push the bike around the course.
Well, that's actually pretty helpful when your bike is moving around underneath you like that is. If you can just stay on it, you are literally just riding that bike and it's going where it needs to go because of those ruts. It actually works out to her benefit, but she is keeping Amanda Miller on a very short leash, sitting there in third position.
Both of these riders really staying steady and focused, and that they're sort of staying the same distance apart and maintaining that gap. But I think last time we saw Amanda Miller maybe a little bit stronger on this bonk breaker climb.
Well, Caitlin Antonow certainly looks like she's putting in a big effort. You see the elbows out as she tries to get as many watts as she can out of each of those pedal strokes. And this is going to be Compton, who has just come off of the bonk breaker run-up. She's going to be working her way back down now onto the backside over to the Cannondale downhill. But this is really the battle to watch today. The race for second. Amanda Miller in the orange, Caitlin Antonow in the green.
Both of these riders really determined and really motivated for a podium at Nationals. Both of them looking towards the next few World Cups and World Championships. So that boost of being on the podium at Nationals, really something everyone's chasing today. And it looks like Amanda's stretching out her lead a little bit here. That upper line, it's so deceiving here, but it's so chunky. There are rocks being exposed, there's roots being exposed. So a lot of little bit of luck, I think, coming into play on that top section.
Yeah, you have to hope that you're going to be able to get through that like you did the lap before, but you never know. There's a lot of women out on course right now. Course conditions are changing by the minute, whether it's the weather that's causing it or other riders. So the line that might have been your favorite has just disappeared, and you have to really be able to adapt and be ready for it. You see one of the fans sledding down that hill. Kudos to them for bringing a sled to a cross race just in case you get the chance to go sledding.
You never know.
It's just like doing it on the bike, Katie Antonow rocketing down that hill like that. We saw a lot of riders earlier this week just really blowing up social media with the fact that they had to go down that same hill on their backside because it was so muddy the bike would not even come close to holding traction on the way down.
Apparently that's not a normal course feature on a cross course.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that in any of the World Cups I've done. But hey, you know what? This is Nationals in the U.S. Hartford putting on a great show. It's an awesome course here. A lot of the fans I see walking around this course. Our broadcast location gives us a great chance to check out just how the crowds have started to build throughout the day. I think the winter storm warning and advisory for the last few days probably gave a lot of pause to people planning to come down, but I know that once they're here, they're having a great time.
And that's going to be Courtney McFadden making her way down the Cannondale downhill, heading into the woods. And McFadden, really a talented technical rider. So the fact that it's not just a straight up knockdown, drag out drag race today is really going to be something that McFadden is happy about.
Well, Courtney McFadden coming off some good prep for Nationals. Her last two races at Resolution Cross Cup, days 1 and 2, where she picked up a win in both of those races. So her last two races ended in a top step on the podium. And unfortunately, I don't think she's going to have another number one today, but she should be able to find her way into the top 5.
Looking back earlier this season, one of our biggest races was Cross Vegas. Wednesday night. It was a very warm evening, of course, but putting on a grass crit style race, which really brings out some of the best riders in the world, of course. But following that was Cyclocross, first year event in the U.S. being a World Cup. And Katie Antonow, you see in green right here, she finished that race just 23 seconds behind the winner, Katie Compton. So she's hoping to stay close to that and put together that race that gets her there. But right now, Katie Compton absolutely crushing today's race.
Well, guys, we talk about the prep for Nationals. Katie Compton hasn't raced in Europe since November, back with the World Cup in Zaven, the fourth stop on the World Cup. She did do a few domestic races here in the U.S., including the Colorado State Championships just a few weeks ago in about mid-December, but hasn't raced since then. So, Georgia, this is her first time back in race mode for quite a while. This was a big break for someone like Katie Compton.
And that makes a big difference. When the cross season starts so early, when it starts in early September, and you race 2 times, you race double races every weekend all the way through. By the time you, especially if you make a couple trips to Europe, by the time you get to nationals, I mean, just mentally, you could be super fit, but just mentally, you've done so much racing, so much traveling that it's really hard at this point in the season. So I think having that break is really going to be beneficial.
Yeah, I've been in that same boat, and it's so hard to manage all of that stuff, whether it's your personal life, whether it's your work life, your training life. I mean, everything about that is difficult.
Sure. And last year, I can speak to this a little bit for myself. I took kind of a break from racing and came in just for the national championships, and I was way fresher. I didn't have that racing in my legs, but I'd been able to stay home, get a good block of training, and it really, I think, played into the fact that I had such a great race there.
Amanda Miller, I think, was one of the only riders that decided to do that stretch of races over the Christmas break over in Europe, where she started with the World Cup in Namur, did the Super Prestige race, and then went to the fourth World Cup in Zolder. So she raced all the way through Christmas. Last race was on December 26th. She was really the only American rider that did that long run of Christmas races, too.
Yeah, Katie Antonow, she was with her for those World Cups, but decided to come home a little bit earlier. We have the first crash here, Katie Compton.
Oh, boy.
Just running out. She looks like she lost her back wheel on that very, very small descent, and that's what we were talking about earlier. It could sneak up and bite you wherever you are, if you're in the lead or if you're in 50th place. So Katie Compton, her first crash of the day.
Georgia, is this just a case of Katie Compton getting too comfortable with this lead, or was it just a rut, you think, maybe a Ruth that caught her off guard here?
I think it's just part of racing, Brad. I mean, it's just part of these conditions, and you saw Katie just get up, get back on her bike. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't flailing around, and so she's very comfortable, I think, in this.
Let's see if we can go back and take a look, try and figure out what happened when she went down. She was in the wooded section. And we'll slow it down just a little bit. It was coming around this tree, and then the front wheel just washes out. I think she leaned a little bit too far into that turn coming out of the tree, and just lost traction. But did a good job of getting back up, didn't panic, right back on the bike, and back to work.
She knows she's got plenty of time, so there's really no reason to panic at this point.
All right, Katie Compton getting the bell for 1 lap to go. On the line now, she is just 10 minutes away from her 13th national champion, as Katie Compton makes history here in Hartford. But she's got to stay upright for the final lap of this course. And one thing we've come to learn about this sport, you just never know. Anything can happen.
Well, looking at Katie Compton adjusting the buckle on her shoe as soon as she got to the flat stretch at the finish line, anytime you touch the ground, whether it's yourself or your bike, you always run the risk of having something like that happen. It's pretty easy to break a shift lever. It's pretty easy to get something caught in your derailleur, even break your derailleur hanger. Having a shoe problem, we saw that in the World Cup just recently with Mathieu van der Poel. He had to go for a shoe change during the race in the pit, so anything can happen when you have a crash.
Here is the race for second. Amanda Miller, Caitlin Antonow. Antonow's got one more lap to try to get onto the wheel of Amanda Miller, just up course from her. It's going to be tough, but if anyone can do it, Caitlin Antonow can.
I think we're going to see these two riders especially starting to take a few more risks, because, you only have about 9 more minutes before it's over. So you got to take every chance you can out there.
Georgia, something interesting to see is that they're actually starting to use different lines. We saw it on the exit of turn 1. Instead of going into that main line that looked like it had some real traffic on it, they were riding into the wider stuff, and that's where Katie Compton just crashed, was going on the outside of that corner, losing some traction with her tires and hitting the deck.
Well, now we pick up Amanda Miller as she sticks the leg out to the inside, working her way around this turn, and Miller is continuing to gap Caitlin Antonow. We'll see her coming into the shot there. That's Antonow in the green. And now she gets out of the saddle. This is the first time I've seen Katie Antonow out of the saddle on this section, the run-up to the Blanc Breaker Hill.
Well, it's also her fiancé, Luke Keogh, there, also not a shabby bike racer in his own right. He's given her that encouragement to really go for it. When you realize you have 1 lap to go, you might take this running section even faster because you know that you're not going to crash. You have to just go for it, but you can't do it in those corners.
And when you only have one lap to go, you don't have as much of a chance of blowing up. You know that now's the time. You've got these straightaways. Don't worry about if you're going to be tired later because you've only got 8 more minutes, so you better make it happen.
Just going over 43 minutes on the bike for Katie Compton as the finish line awaits her arrival. Meanwhile, the gap continuing to grow between Amanda Miller and Caitlin Antonow. Antonow is very quickly running out of real estate if she wants a silver medal today.
But as we saw earlier, what seems like an insurmountable gap can be, vanish in the blink of an eye. So I think really important for all 3 of these riders to stay focused and, keep it going until the finish.
Katie Compton there just approaching the pit lane. I mean, once you hit that final pit, you have to make it to the finish line from there on out. So that is when the worry would really start from your pit crew once you've missed that last chance to get a bike. If you have a problem, that very next corner, you have to run to the finish line. So hopefully that won't happen for any of these riders, but it's something to think about.
Again, I think we saw Amanda Miller put a little bit of time on Katie Antonow on that bonk breaker climb and the traverse across the top there.
Yeah, Katie Antonow unfortunately looking like she might have to settle for a bronze medal today unless she can pull off an amazing ride, or Amanda Miller has a max chance moment on the way into the finish.
Well, max chance moment, I think that's, there's nothing negative about that connotation. He had an incredible race. He was always near the front or at the front, putting together an awesome race. Fortunately, he went to, to the negative right at the final stretch, giving Lance Haddad a chance at going for that victory. So, any of these riders really just want to stay upright and stay out of trouble.
Well, at this point, Katie Compton is literally just about out of sight from Amanda Miller. I don't know if Miller will be able to see Compton anywhere on this course. Meanwhile, here comes Antonow trying to work her way up. She sure is getting out of the saddle a lot here, guys. She's starting to feel the pressure as we get later into this race.
Talking to Katie Antonow after some of these previous nationals, she gets there, she gets in the race. She's so nervous about how it's going to go. But in the race, she comes alive and puts in these last laps that are so much faster than the beginning. She wishes this thing were an hour long. I mean, there's a lot of those riders out there that just race differently. And once you really start to get into it, you just embrace it and you really fight through that suffering.
Well, Katie Compton is now just about a half lap away from picking up another national championship. But the big question is, who will take silver behind her? Will Amanda Miller hold on, or will a charging Katie Antonow be able to pick that up? Now we are back with what I think is going to be 4th place out on course. That is Crystal Anthony with lucky number 7 on her back as she moves into the woods. So Anthony with a great top 10 ride, and then this is going to be Elle Anderson, good for 5th place on course to round out our top 5. Well, Elle Anderson had a great start to this race. Remember, leading Katie Compton for the first half lap or so. She had that great run on the low line on the bonk breaker run up. But I think this course just getting to her slowly but surely, chipping away time. Talking about Elle Anderson.
And again, if you have a scary crash in a race, a lot of times, if it's a big enough crash, that can be enough to just kind of take away your killer instinct. So Elle Anderson could be just sort of riding it in, kind of doing the best she can with what she's left with.
Good look at McFadden heading into the woods. And just like Tim was talking about earlier, you really want that bike to sort of bounce around underneath you. We're going to see more of this in our elite men's race following the finish of our elite women's race. But Georgia, bike handling really seems to be the most important thing here today.
It's really making a difference out there. I mean, as we saw, even someone as skilled as Katie Compton making little mistakes out there. So it's really a struggle. And then, add that to the fact that you're cross-eyed, you're trying as hard as you can, and it just becomes harder and harder as the race goes on.
Yeah, can we talk about being cross-eyed a little bit? I think that there's something that happens when you're in the middle of a fight like that. You just put everything into it, and it really does narrow what you can actually see. And you are so focused on trying to get around these corners, trying not to get caught in a rut. Amanda Miller, I have to say, it looks like that gap is not as big as it used to be, and I think she is continuing to increase her gap over Katie Antonow behind at the cost of what's happening in front with Compton. I think she's actually starting to close.
Well, there is your bronze standard out on course with Caitlin Antonow trying to catch the orange jersey of Amanda Miller just ahead of her. And they're running out of real estate very, very quickly as they're down to the bottom quarter of this course. They're going to go up and over the flyover. You'll see Katie Compton making her way over, then that tough off-camber section onto the Volkswagen run-up, and then onto the finish line.
Yeah, I think we're seeing Amanda Miller really being able to stretch it out on that bonk breaker section, but then Katie kind of pulling it back in all those flat, straight sections around the pit, say, and these pedally sections.
It looks like Katie Compton taking that corner where she crashed the last lap a different way. She stayed high on the approach to it and a little bit slower. It looks like she didn't want to risk having those tires slide out by going too fast. You know, it's something that happens when you take the line the same way each lap. You really have to be able to adapt.
Yeah, I think, George, it's safe to say at this point you take the safest line for Katie Compton. With a gap this big, there is no reason to start taking risks trying to shave 1 or 2 seconds off.
No unnecessary risks at all for Katie. And you can see she's heading up into this last climb before she heads down onto the pavement.
So Compton digging in one more time to the top of the Volkswagen run-up. She makes it safely up and over, back on the bike. Now she'll make her way onto the pavement. At this point, she can feel the national championship. She can hear the crowd waiting for her here on the finish stretch. As Katie Compton comes onto the pavement, she will become the 13-time U.S. Cyclocross national champion. Compton does it again with a repeat victory in Hartford, Connecticut.
Really a flawless ride from Katie there. I mean, in these conditions, she was just able to stay calm, didn't let any of those little mistakes get to her. But now we're waiting to see who's going to come out of this fight for second. And it looks like Amanda Miller. Great ride for her today.
Great ride for Amanda Miller. She has got a lot to be proud of today. That silver medal is going to mean a lot to this young rider.
Top 3 riders today ranked in the top 20 in the world. 3rd position for Katie Compton. And 9th position for this rider, Katie Antonow. Amanda Miller doing a great job. She is going to move up in those world rankings with this great, solid ride at the national championships. Those 2 riders spending a lot of time in the Midwest. Katie Compton out of Colorado Springs. Oh, look at that. That's a great way to finish it up. You know, these riders all know that they're out there as competitors, but they spend a lot of time on the circuit and around the world, and you always look out for a friendly face.
Yeah, the mentor and the mentee with Katie Compton and Caitlin Antonow, as they're going to want to get jackets on as quickly as possible, trying to stay warm. Well, I know Amanda Miller's going to be disappointed, at least for a little bit, with her ride today. She wanted to be a national champion. I know she really targeted this race to try to get on the top step, but there's nothing for her to be ashamed of with 2nd place. And Caitlin Antonow had a great ride as well. Though you got to remember, Antonow has been 2nd to Katie Compton before, so she's obviously knows that she can do a little better with a silver medal. This is Courtney McFadden heading into her final section of this course. Now Anderson will be good for what should be 4th place. Look at the mud on her face after that early crash. We're still not sure if it's mud or blood. We'll try and get confirmation on that. I think it's mud. I'm hoping it's not blood because that would be a lot of blood.
Well, let's hope that she's all right no matter what. McFadden coming into the finish here. These conditions in those ruts, everyone wants to show up to nationals in their best possible shape, but you have to be able to ride these conditions as they present themselves. So great job to her.
Again, we talk about the level of racing here in the U.S. I mean, a top 5 at the U.S. National Championships, that's huge, and really bodes well for all these racers heading into European races.
Well, now seeing Crystal Anthony across the line as she finishes up a top 10 ride for the Max's Shimano squad. You can see how big these gaps became over it was just about 50 minutes of racing. We saw some huge time gaps open up here.
I think when you're not riding with someone, it's always the temptation to kind of sit up a little bit and ride at your own pace. And so you see, if someone's not within your sights, I mean, you kind of let that gap go, and that a lot of times causes these gaps to get so big.
Well, that's what we saw in the top 3 like that. They stayed so close together throughout the race. They're always fighting for that extra speed.
All right, guys, sounds like Bill Scheiken down on course has Katie Compton with her post-race interview. Let's go down
All
to
right,
Bill.
we are here with your 2017 U.S. Cyclocross National Champion of Baker's Doves, a number 13, Katie Compton. Where does this one rank?
Oh, man, this one felt really good, mainly because it's such a tricky, technical, snowy course. So I felt pretty good, and then technically I was pretty good. Just takes a lot of focus. So, I take every year, like just one at a time, and then don't think about the last ones I've won. So, yeah, it was good. They're all special, and it felt really good to win today.
Coming into the season, you're probably feeling the best than you had in many years coming into it, sickness, everything else, getting over that, and coming out really strong in the beginning of the year. Did you feel like that was going to be a problem holding that form throughout the whole season, 2 Nationals and then on to Worlds?
Not this year because I kind of plan to take a little recovery in December, give me some time to just recover from the initial travel and then start training and building again for Nationals and Worlds. So I think I planned it well this year and I'm feeling good. I'm excited to race and I'm not so tired like I have been years in the past. So I think I'm on a good path.
So how this race played out today, with a group for the first lap, and then where did you really make your move, and was that pre-planned, or did it just play out as the race went on?
I think it's just you just ride as fast as you can on this course. There's not a ton of tactics involved. The first lap, I just struggled getting in my pedals, and I struggled I dropped my chain, and so just stupid things. But I collected myself, and then once I got the rhythm, I just tried to stay on it.
Little problem in the last lap, maybe just a wake-up call as you're coming home. You didn't change bikes, so I guess everything was okay.
No, it was fine. It was just like I was getting heckled to ride a rut, and I was like, hadn't looked at that line. And so I was kind of focused on that. I was like, stop telling me what to do. And then I just fell over in the soft snow. So it wasn't a big deal, but I just laughed. I was like, that's why I got to pay attention and focus on the ruts.
All right, congratulations. We look forward to seeing you at Worlds.
Thanks.
Well, guys, job's not over yet for Katie Compton. You spend maybe a little bit of time celebrating the national championship here, but she's got to go right back to work tomorrow morning, focusing on the World Championships.
Yeah, a few more weeks of racing left in this season, so, doesn't stop now.
Well, the Worlds is still, a massive goal for any rider, but especially for Katie Compton. She's finished so high up in the overall standings, winning the World Cup and so on. But that World Championship title is something that still is so very important for her. And hopefully she's able to get to that start line and really have a great shot at it.
All right, so here's a look at your top 10 results as Katie Compton picks up the win. Amanda Miller in second. Caitlin Antonow finds the podium in third. Elle Anderson with a great ride for fourth. Courtney McFadden rounds out the top 5. Then Crystal Anthony, Arlie Kemmerer, Rebecca Farringer, Sunny Gilbert, and Melinda McCutcheon rounding out the top 10.
Melinda McCutcheon winning the single speed race yesterday, so really impressive ride for her.
Talk about course practice. Those conditions were probably worse than what the riders just saw right now, so that's a great ride for her.
Guys, biggest surprise on this list of the top 10, most impressive ride, obviously, aside from Katie Compton winning her 13th national champion. Who impressed you the most today?
Well, I think, for me, what I like to see is the fact that, Katie Antonow and Amanda Miller had that battle, and it wasn't just for part of the race. It was for the entire thing, and they were both able to put together lap after lap after lap, staying so close together. I think, for me, both of those riders take that title for me.
Georgia, your most impressive ride of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say Amanda Miller. I think she had that goal for herself, and she really rode a consistent race. She really made some improvements in her technical skills, I think, this year, and it really showed out there.
Last question before we take a quick break and shift over to focusing on our elite men's race. What did we learn from the elite women's race and the course conditions that we're going to be looking for in the elite men's race?
Yeah, it's probably not as much of that fresh snow that's really causing the most trouble. It's that changing conditions, maybe a little bit of mud that's turning into something even worse, which is going to collect itself on the pedals, on the bike. Any kind of a time you hit the ground, especially in conditions like this, it'll be even worse.
Georgia, what are you watching for our final race of the day?
Well, I think just those little mistakes, that those sections in the woods where, you just get out of that main rut and it just takes out into the tape. So I think whoever's going to be coming back from all those little mistakes is definitely going to have the advantage.
All right, well, one race to go as we wrap up our elite women's race out on course, getting ready for our final race of the day with the elite men coming up next. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll hear from some of our earlier winners in the day. We're going to talk with our 17 to 18-year-old champions, and then we'll chat with our U23 winners after this.